I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and came from a working class. My parents are working class background. I'm an only child. I went to high school there, and then went to college at the University of Arizona. Graduated with a degree in psychology. From the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I had a camera around my neck. I had an uncle who was an amateur photographer, and whenever he bought a new camera, I got the old one. So photography was a great love of mine. And once I got to grade school, about the eighth grade, I got more serious about it and entered some contests. And then eventually in high school, I won a Kodak competition, a national scholastic competition. So one of my great loves, besides movies, is photography. And I became a big movie fan from the time my mother took me to see my first film, which was the time I was 4 or 5 years old, and spent every Saturday matinee watching movies at 12 o'clock. It was a good way to get rid of me for the day, just drop me off at a film. So it became something that a lot of dreams generated through, both for me and for my future. And it's something I've always wanted to do. I wanted to be associated with that magic on the screen. And I never thought, coming from Michigan, California being so far away, that I'd ever get here to where I am today, or to make a movie besides even being in Hollywood. Chances are it was a Disney movie as a child, but movies that I remember are films like Mr. Roberts. I remember a lot of the David Lean films. Of course, I was older then, from Lawrence of Arabia to Dr. Zhivago, Bridge on the River Kwai. Those are some of my favorite films. And again, Lean had the ability to match the visuals with great storytelling, and that's what I think movies are about. It's not radio. The visuals are extremely important. If you look at The Rock, you'll understand, or some of the other films that I've produced. I spend an enormous amount of time on the art direction, the cinematography of our films, and the design of our films. So I try to hire the leading edge or the cutting edge of both cinematographers, production designers, and directors who have a visual sense. And I produced a group of commercials for Pontiac that were written up in Time magazine. From that, when I was 23, I had the opportunity to go to New York and work on a big account for BBD&O on Pepsi. So when I was 23 years old, I was responsible for all their broadcast, both radio and television. And that kind of led me to Hollywood. That's where I got the knowledge. Besides working in Detroit, where you really do it yourself. Besides working with the writers and being an art director, you conceive the idea, and then you hire a director, and you actually go out and film it. And then they give you the film, and you have to sit there and cut it with an editor, or sometimes you cut it yourself. And then you do all the sound work and the music, and you're kind of following it around because the director will be on to another job. So that's I learned my film, degree in advertising to understand all the technical aspects of film. And also you understand that you have to have a product at the end of it that you can sell. There's no sense making a film that you can't have a way to reach the public on why they should go see it. It's the same thing when you're advertising a product. You have to have something unique. You have to have a unique selling proposition. And we try to do that even when we conceive our films. We have to figure out a way that I can explain to the people who are going to give me the money that I know I can get an audience to see this picture. Just based on the idea. It has nothing to do with who's going to be in it or who's going to be the director, because the audience doesn't care about that. They do care to a certain extent about who's in the film. Certain stars certainly will draw them in, at least for a weekend. But beyond that, it has to come down to the movie. The first pictures I really produced on my own was American Gigolo and Thief, which are, films that people talk about still today. American Gigolo was a big success for its time. It was a film that really broke out Richard Gere to carry a movie by himself. And it had, Giorgio Armani was a star in the movie, even though he wasn't in this country at the time. We found him in Milan, and we thought he was an up-and-coming designer. He did all of Richard Gere's wardrobe. Paul Schrader was on his way to a couple Academy Award nominations, and as a very prominent director. And it was an interesting process because John Travolta was originally going to star in the movie. But through a series of incidents in his own personal life, he felt he couldn't start a picture. His mother was ill. He lost his girlfriend. And over a weekend we lost him, and Paramount was ready to to drop the movie. My partner, Don Simpson, not at the time, was the head of production, and called me in late Friday afternoon, so we lost John. Paul and I felt that Richard Gere would be perfect. He wasn't a movie star at the time, and we went to his house over the weekend and met with him and talked to his agent, and came in Monday morning. He had agreed to do it. We told Don, his color drained from his face because the studio hadn't approved him as an actor for the project. Went to his boss. His boss said, well, maybe we'll use Richard, but the budget at that time was $11 or $12 million if you can do it for $5, thinking we never could make the picture for $5. We sharpened our pencils and gave him a budget for $5 million and made the picture for $4.7. So despite the fact they didn't want to make the movie, they made the movie and made a lot of money on the movie. And that was really the start of my relationship, at least professionally, with Simpson. We'd been friends and roommates prior to that. In fact, he borrowed my sport jacket for his interview at Paramount before he went in there to get his first job as an assistant to Dick Silbert. So we go back a long way to the early 70s. I'd worked on Gigolo already, and I think I was finishing Thief at the time with Michael Mann, and I ran into Don coming out of a theater in Westwood. We'd both seen a picture. He was coming out, I was going in, and he said, look, we have this project we want to start in April, or at least release in April, and this was, I guess, during the summer. And I'd like you to read the script. He sent me the script over, and I said, God, this thing really needs a lot of work. And he said, I agree with you. And we talked about writers, and we decided we'd put Joe Esterhaus on it. And I agreed to, Joe rewrote it. I agreed to get involved in the process. And we then gave it to Adrian Lyne, who committed to do it prior to our rewrite with Joe. And so the three of us really worked very hard with Joe to come around to the movie that eventually got on the screen. And, it's always fun when you have an opportunity to do something new and different. And that's what I love doing. I love to do something that other people haven't done before, at least in recent time. I mean, a musical, which it really is, even though, everybody tries to avoid that word because musicals haven't been successful. Flashdance really was, for its day, a new type of musical. And that is exciting when you have no stars. You try to find stars and create stars. And I think the star that came out of it, Jennifer, of course, had the opportunity to become a star, but preferred to stay in school and continue her education. Adrian really became a star, and Don and myself proved that we could make a picture that people would want to go see. Of course, the community thought it was a fluke, and we were just lucky. And after that, we've made a number of successful pictures, so maybe we were lucky, but maybe we were ready. When we went to Washington to talk about Top Gun, the Secretary of the Navy was very, very forward-thinking. His name was John Lehman, and really believed in publicity in movies that could help recruitment, and he was very cooperative. I mean, we got the aircraft carriers, we got the pilots, we got the jets. They really opened their arms to us. Of course, we were filming their ongoing operations. They didn't do anything with us that would jeopardize what they do for the country. We just got to work around what they did for the country. So that was a good period for the Navy. When we did Top Gun, they introduced us to our female lead. We had a girl who was outside the military, and the admiral of the base said, well, I know somebody who could work much better, and it's an advisor for the RAND Corporation who grades them on their military operations and goes out on the carriers and tells them if their performance is up to what it should be. And she became the lead of the movie, and that's because of the military. So we kind of pulled their expertise into our process, and it was good for both of us. And I hope in the future we can get the government to understand that we're out there not to hurt them or make them look bad, but to show it the way it really is. And it's about our Senate appropriations too. And I'm sure Top Gun, their recruiting went way up after the picture came out because we made them look the way they really are. The Rock was a terrific idea, and the initial writers did a very good job realizing that idea. But like everything, I never settle, and I always think things can be better even after they're finished. So we brought in Mark Rosner, who did a very good job on changing some of the characters and embellishing some of the characters. And we made the villain kind of black. He wasn't black and white. He was more gray. He had very honorable intentions, just using the wrong means. And Mark brought that to the page. Jonathan Hensley came in, and he kind of gave us those great moments. He worked out a lot of the really tough stuff with the missiles and the green balls, and just really put his heart and soul and gave us huge movie moments. Aaron Sorkin did some wonderful character work, as did Clement and LaFernay. Clement and LaFernay were really responsible for helping us with Sean Connery. both Sean and myself had worked with Ian and Dick prior to The Rock, and felt that they would understand what Sean wanted to bring to it. Sean, it's really a process that you go through with a screenplay and with a movie. And if you can pick the talent right and listen to the talent and know when they're giving you something great, they'll make you look real good. And that's what Sean did for us. I mean, Sean took his character and raised it to another level. It was his idea to have the character be a British agent that was caught, behind the lines and then rolled over and forgotten by his own government. And the Kennedy tapes and the Hoover tapes with Kennedy, and it was all Sean's idea. And it was Clement LaFernay who really added to his character and built his character and gave him some great dialogue. Then Aaron Sorkin came in after that and really helped Nick's character and came up with a lot of great lines and great scenes for both Nick and for Ed Harris. So it was a layering process. Each writer gave us their best, and there's always little things that somebody else can come in that you miss, and that's what the additional writers did on this project. Nick became involved in the process. He was the first person to bring in the process, and it was very difficult to get Nick. Nick had committed to another movie prior to ours that was going to shoot right in our time period. We had to get our picture ready. We had to be filming, I think it was in August or October when we started, I'm not sure which. And it was very important that we mount the picture because Joe had a release date for the summer, Joe Roth. And, Nick, what we tried to do is push the other film back so we can get in that slot. They didn't want to start till January, February. We felt we could finish in February. We had a very difficult time trying to move that date. It was through Savoy. Savoy, at the time, we didn't know this, was going through all kinds of financial problems. The director was real difficult in moving his dates because he needed snow and was trying to be cooperative, but it wasn't working in our favor. And it got to a point where we got basically lucky. The company went out of business. They couldn't make the movie. We took that slot. But we hung in there for Nick, I would say, for 2.5 months, just trying to negotiate without going to another actor. Because Don and I felt he was the right guy to play this role. Nick would bring a new dimension to that character, because he's a brilliant actor. We knew nothing about Leaving Las Vegas. I didn't know about Leaving Las Vegas till a week before it came out. Nick didn't even talk about it. He came to me finally saying, I got this picture opening in a week. I have no idea what it's going to do. It's a small little movie we made for nothing. So that had no bearing on casting Nick Cage. It's just, we'd seen a body of his work and felt he was a young actor that was going to pop, just like I felt Eddie Murphy was going to pop, and we felt Tom Cruise was going to pop when we used him. Eddie had never been in a picture by himself before. He always had a co-star who was very famous. Tom had made one or two small movies. The picture prior to Top Gun was a picture that didn't work at the box office, called Legend. We like to take chances on people we really believe in, and Nick was one of them. And Nick, delivered in spades. And having Nick really kind of drew Sean into it. It's funny how one actor attracts another actor. Sean had always wanted to work with Nick like we had, and said, you got Nick. I don't think the character is right for me. If you work with me on the character, I'd like to be in the picture because of Nick. So we worked with Sean. Jonathan Hensley and myself went to London a number of times and sat with Sean, and we'd spend all day with Sean and then go back that night. And Jonathan would type up the pages. We'd be up to 4 or 5 in the morning, meet with him again at 9, go through those pages, go back and rewrite them every night. And through that process, he finally committed to do the picture. So it was. It's always very difficult to get the actors, especially actors like Nick and Sean, because they're offered everything. So you're fighting the entire town and the entire community on any one picture that you're trying to make with any of them. The Rock was a very difficult film to shoot because we were on Alcatraz. Alcatraz is cold. It's damp. It rains. You never know when it's going to be sunny. And the hardest thing is the weather changes every hour. If you don't like it, wait around. Within an hour, it'll change. So we'd be shooting the scene. It'd be beautiful. It'd be sunny. The next minute, the fog would roll in. It'd start raining. An hour later, the sun would be out again. So, it was really unpredictable. So it was very difficult for Michael to film there. We had miles of cable. We had to light the entire island because it has limited electricity and the amount of lights we brought in. We had 10 miles, I bet, of cable on that island. We had to feed everybody there. We had to bring our own trucks and to I guess, house the actors. We had trailers. So we set up a city on Alcatraz. Because we were shooting during the winter, the conditions were very tough. There was a period in the film where the temperatures dropped. We had high winds all the time. Michael got very sick. He was running 103 fever, and he was still shooting. Michael got up. He called me. He says, "I don't feel well." I said, "What's going to happen?" He said, "Can you claim insurance?" I said, "Yeah, we're self-insured." He said, "I'll be there." So he's sitting in his director's chair. It's cold. We're shooting in a tunnel. We got fog and we have rain, and he is there like a real trooper. And he got 2 nights work in before he got better. So he just didn't want to give up, and that's what youth will give you. I have 25 pictures in development. There are a lot of them that, all of them are pictures I want to make, otherwise they wouldn't be there. It's a process. It takes a long time to get a script. It took us 8 years to get Beverly Hills Cop made. It took us 4 years to get Top Gun to the plate. The Rock was about 1.5 years, which is pretty short as far as in terms of what we do. And there are a lot of films that have been in our development for a long time. They're still going to get made. Bad Boys took 10 years to get made. So it's a long process. If you have a good idea, interesting characters, and a strong theme, we'll eventually get it made. So that's the game.